Hi there. In this video, we're going to look at custom transformations of columns using functions. This is a technique that I think you will find very, very handy. So let's go ahead and get started. My name is Brian Grant, and I'm here representing CSG Pro. Okay, so let's say that we've got a table that looks like this. We've got a bunch of machines, and we've got operating temperatures, the minimum operating temperature, the maximum operating temperature, let me just resize this, and the average operating temperature. Well, it doesn't really matter what we're looking at. I guess what I'm trying to say is, imagine we've got, in this case, 3 columns. Imagine we've got 20 columns that all have temperature measurements in them. But these are all in Fahrenheit, and we want to convert them to Celsius. Now, traditionally, the way that you would do this is you would create a custom column that converts this column, rename it, and then delete this old column, create a custom column that converts this one, new one over there, and delete the old one, create a new custom column that converts the minimum, and then delete the old minimum. And that works, but if you've got, even if you've got 3 columns, that's kind of cumbersome. If you've got like 20 columns, that's very cumbersome, and it adds a lot of applied steps when really it's just a single step that you want to do. So we're going to use a function, and we're also going to use a little sort of hack around to solve this problem. Okay, so to start with, what we're going to need is a function that converts temperatures in Fahrenheit to temperatures in Celsius. So we're going to go up here to New Source. We're going to click Blank Query, and we're going to go to the Advanced Editor. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete this boilerplate, hit delete, and this is a function that takes a single argument. We're going to call that argument temperature, and we're going to pass that into the following function. Okay, that's what this guy means. This is not greater than or equal than. Think of this as the arrow. It's passing this value into presumably a function. Well, not presumably. Once you use this operator, it says everything to the right of it is a function. Okay, so what does this function do? Well, it takes the temperature, it subtracts 32, and it divides by 1.8. That is the correct conversion. So I'm going to go ahead and hit done, and I'm going to rename this query fn for function f to c, Fahrenheit to Celsius. Okay, now all I have to do is come back here to my initial table, and what I'm going to do is, it's not going to seem kind of crazy at first. I'm going to shift click up here to select that column, shift click here to select all 3 columns that I want to change. If I had 20, I would shift click all 20 columns, and I'm going to right click, and I'm going to go down to transform and select absolute value. I could actually select just about any of these things. It doesn't really matter. So you might be asking yourself, Brian, why do we want absolute value? Well, we don't. We don't really care about the absolute value of these columns. What we want is the code that it's going to write for us when I click this. So when I click, boom, now we've got the absolute value, which is the exact same numbers because they were all positive, but that's not really what we care about. What we care about is the M code underneath that step. So if you can't see the formula bar on your own screen, you can just make sure that formula bar is checked. I always leave mine checked. So here's this code, and let me pull this open in Notepad. This is the same exact code, just in a text file. So here it is up there, and here I've added some white space so you can see it better. What this function does is it does a transform columns in a table, what transforms the previous step, and then it takes this column, this column, this column, and applies this function, and this function to it. So what it's written is it's written a code that applies the absolute value, the number.abs for absolute value, to each one of these columns. Well, that works fine if you want the absolute value, but we want the Fahrenheit conversion, so all we have to do is replace every instance of number.abs with fn f2c. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to come up here. I'm going to go ahead and select the first number.abs and change that to fn f2c. Go find the second number.abs, change that to fn f2c, and go find the last one, number.abs, and change that to fn f2c. And now when I hit enter, I've gone ahead and I've applied that transformation that I defined a second ago to all these columns, okay? And if I want to, I can now round it, transform, round, same kind of deal. I'm going to round to 2 decimal places. And you can kind of see what that code looks like. That's it. And so, this is something that will probably show up at some point as a button here in the transform menu. But for now, this is sort of the best way to do it. And it sure is nice to have this be, one step as opposed to 20 or I guess 40 if you have 40 columns, because you have to add 1 for each column and then delete 1 for each column. Gosh, what a mess. This is much cleaner and much nicer. Okay, well, I do hope that was helpful, and I will see you next video.